Well, hello, Resiliency for Life, Michael Ballard, and we have a special guest today. And as always, the theme is about resiliency, overcoming adversity, working our way back in a zigzag pattern to get more resilience so we can thrive and get on with life despite the challenges that visibly and invisibly impact us all. And today, our special guest, I'm going to let her introduce herself. Our special guest is
Ani bojo ji deshna kas chakwe muso ndo dam fogun koi. Mingazi saki gan and dojua.
Told you, special guest. Did you get that? So, can you give us some of your background? Where'd you get started in life, and how'd you get here, and what are your highlights, and what are some of the challenges? So, where was home in the very, very beginning?
I grew up in northern Ontario, near the border of Manitoba and Ontario. It's called Eagle Lake.
And that's very north for those of us who live near the U.S.-Canadian border. And yet, it's not a third of the way to the North Pole?
No.
It's still in the province of Ontario.
Yes.
It's not one of our northern territories. So my friends who live in the Toronto area think that that's far north. It's north quite a bit,
Yes.
but it's not the far north. It's
No.
the near what I call, from my limited geography knowledge, near north.
Yes.
But it's still quite a lot of wilderness.
Yes.
Gloriously beautiful,
Yes.
but somewhat small in numbers of people. So, what was that like? How big was that village or town?
So it's just about, I'd say about half an hour from Dryden, Ontario.
Okay,
And I didn't grow up there.
okay,
I I was there for a very short period of my early life
yes.
as a baby, and then I was moved to Sudbury, Ontario, as an adoptee.
Ah, okay. So you were part of the Scoop?
Yes, I was.
Mm.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know about the Scoop, I'll put a link down below in the YouTube, in the channel, so you can learn more, because that's a vital piece of Canadian history that's very controversial and not very, very accepting of different cultures, because there was only one way, and it was wrong, but that's how some people thought in government was the way. So that was a big adventure.
Yeah, it was a change. It was a big change. I grew up with, you know, French family, and all this information will probably be all in my upcoming book that I've been working on
One of
over
the
the
reasons
few
she's
years.
here. Yes, good.
Yeah.
I will look forward to my paid-for autographed copy.
Oh, great. And it was difficult.
Yeah, I would guess. Culture change, language change, I bet.
And yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Okay,
Not that I recall very much, but
okay.
yeah. And there was there wasn't very many First Nations people around. My grandparents were terrific though, and they encouraged me to learn a little bit here and there of what they knew. And
Good, good.
my grandmother was a librarian, and
One of my favorite professions, because librarians have helped me see multiple perspectives by helping me figure out which books I should read next on a topic or an issue.
yeah, exactly.
Good.
Yeah, so she showed me a few things about how legends became legends, certain things like that. Just little snippets of information.
But
that
powerful,
yes,
because that's our connection to our past and our heritage. And
yeah, yeah. I went to a French Catholic school.
okay,
It was difficult to fit in.
Mhm.
There was a lot of people that accepted me, like the other kids.
right,
I found it very difficult to talk to people growing up.
yes,
I didn't really talk very much, except for yes or no, or sometimes in class I would answer a question, very rarely. I was good in sports. I love sports, and those are the things that I would enjoy throughout my years.
good. What type of sports?
Floor hockey, broom ball, volleyball, Yes.
Love volleyball.
Yes.
I got big mitts, and for high school, I played intramural, and we did well. Good for you.
Yeah. And we grew up like in a really well-to-do family. There was a lot of professionals
So at least food and housing, clothing was all.
provided. Yes, yeah,
That's
yeah.
always
Everything was
important.
always
Good.
taken care of. Sometimes my grandmother would make us a skirt or shirt or bag or
Oh,
whatever.
nice.
Yeah.
Well,
and
it depends on how good grandma made them, because some of my friends had grandma or mom or auntie make things, and they were like, I wore it around her because it was being respectful, but I never wore it to school. My auntie made hats and gloves, so I
okay.
was blessed that every Christmas I got a new hat and new gloves. So it was really nice to always have a backup hat. And
Yeah.
my one hat she made me at 13, because as a teenager that was your last hat. It lasted me till I lost it at 59 years old. It was getting tired,
Yeah.
but it still kept me really warm.
It's
So
gifted out there somewhere.
I regret losing it. Didn't lose it on purpose. I still wanted it, but
Yeah.
life
Oh,
happens.
you have the memory.
I do.
Yeah. So there was a lot of family around all the time, and
Good.
yeah. There was. Let me see. So I had an older brother who was also adopted with me,
Okay.
and we
So
were
same family?
Yes. Yeah.
Thank heavens,
Yeah.
because I've met people who got picked up in the scoop, and one sister went here, and one sister got lost in the system, and years later they were like telling the family, well, you should adopt her too, and they were like, well, we have a 3-bedroom house with 5 people, and we're a little crowded, and very unfair to everybody, especially the sisters.
Yeah.
So
My family explained to me when I was 5, that I wasn't actually their daughter. I was actually adopted, but they love me like their daughter,
Yes.
and they treat me like their daughter, and I'll always be their daughter, and those kinds of things. So I knew at a young age, that
okay,
it wasn't. I always felt like I was different, and so
your intuition was powerful.
yes, yeah, yeah, and my brother and I, as we were growing up, he showed more. I'd say more behaviors,
Okay.
that were related to PTSD or
Frustrations,
yeah,
and yes,
and so he acted out more than I did.
and we didn't know as much about it then, so we kept thinking that individuals should have the willpower to deal with this, but
Well, as children,
they were your children. I mean, how can a 10-year-old or a 5-year-old or a 15-year-old, because I've worked with grandparents who are parenting their grandkids
Yes.
due to mom and dad's inability to,
Yes.
and it's very frustrating because we still can't give kids all the tools.
No, but to give them awareness,
Yes.
If you're feeling this, or if you, are thinking about this, maybe you can go, do this with an outlet, or find them an outlet, or,
Yes.
try and spend more time with them, stuff like that.
Wise, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Help them express their feelings.
Yes, yeah.
No.
As I went along, growing up, my brother and I didn't get along very often. Though we grew up with, thankfully, this wonderful other family, who were friends of ours, brother and sister, and the family was great. They were always really generous with us and kind to us, and understanding with us.
Right.
So we always got along with them, and
Very nice.
and we're still in touch today.
Oh, good,
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
That
And-
continuity, I believe, is really important, emotionally and intellectually, to have
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. They really helped us, just as a family. Never felt judged. Never.
Really important.
Always felt included. Whereas when I was growing up in the family, I think that they tried their best to make me feel included, but there was always this empty feeling, that there's somebody out there that looks like me, or that I look like them,
Yep.
and
Really important.
what happened to my family. There was all kinds of questions that I had, but I never shared with them, because I didn't talk. I didn't want to. I knew that they weren't my parents, and I could not accept. Pardon me. I couldn't accept the fact that they're just people that I live with, kind of thing.
Yes.
I tried to be, their daughter as much as I could. I just, there's part of me though that always wondered where do I belong?
Because there was that break in association and break in family engagement, and so suddenly you were moved, and it takes superhuman to include you 100%.
Yeah, yeah. And so, I didn't talk, like I said. I didn't tell them how I felt. I didn't tell them any of my thoughts or feelings or, anything that was causing me problems. If I was being bullied or if I was angry or sad or mad, or I didn't show them anything and share that. And so a lot of those things were buried inside, and I just knew that I wanted to help people like me. And so as I grew up, there was a lot of issues showed up in my schoolwork, my lack of interest. Even though I'm intelligent, I had no interest in succeeding in that area.
Yes.
And so, that was, I guess, a signal to my family that, she's struggling. And so, I had aunts and uncles, around that were trying to help me. Mostly aunts.
That's a blessing.
Yeah. And I had a close relationship with some of my cousins that I could talk to a little bit about certain things. There was like, I would say a little bit of abuse in the family where, I didn't talk about that. I didn't talk about those things to the rest of the family or to anybody in the community. And I guess at the age of 12, I think at about 13, my first try of trying to self-harm was with aspirin, Tylenols. And I just looked sick and I felt sick, and my parents, my mother, she was like, mad at me because I had left. I was a runaway.
Okay.
Yeah. And
so that's the unexpressed feelings that you don't know what are, but you just know that don't want to be here. You want to be somewhere else, but no plan. You're 12.
Yeah, 12 or 13. Yeah, and so and the body changes as well.
You're going through the changes. Yes, yeah.
So there's all kinds of things going on, and there's pressures, and you're not talking. So like I just felt like this was the only way, maybe. And I didn't say it to anybody. I didn't tell anybody for many years about self-harm.
Right.
And I didn't even understand. I just thought, well, maybe I should just do this.
It's frustration, and it's unacknowledged pain and grief and anger, and it's what you chose, and you didn't know it was even a choice. It was just like, this isn't good, so I'll try this.
Yeah.
And you're 12. Yeah.
And you have access to Tylenols and aspirins and those kinds of things.
Yeah, because most households, that was not a big deal, especially, not that you're as old as me, but in the olden days.
So that was the first time that I ever tried to self-harm. And I didn't really talk about it to my family. But my mother noticed but she was mad that I had, not been responsible or responding. So I don't remember what it was, where I went, but she was angry at me. So my aunt said she looks a little sick. And actually, I think I was a little bit older. I think I might have been 13 or 14, not 12, because at 12 it just started to change.
Right.
So I think that's when my crisis really started to happen, was at 14, 15 years old. Because I really don't remember those years.
No, well, I
truly have tried to remember, and I don't remember.
I have a friend who just left home at 14.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
You people don't understand me?
Yeah.
You don't really love me?
Yeah.
I'm gone. And they were like, where'd this come from?
Yeah.
Also didn't talk.
Yeah.
Also didn't feel supported. And yet it was like, well, that's from before, not now. We're being supportive, and we're not the way I want it, but that's the first 2 periods in their life between 0 and 3, and then 4 or 5 and 12. And then they get adopted at 12, and then by 14 they're like, no.
Yeah.
But most of their issues, I think, because they've only shared a little bit with me, was from before.
Yeah.
The 0 to 3. Even if they can't acknowledge it,
Yes.
intellectually it's emotionally there.
Yes.
They saw, heard, and lived through experiences that we shouldn't have to.
Yeah.
And nobody had an evil plan, but they're loving adults were doing their best, but it wasn't good enough by certain standards. So yeah, so the frustrations and the anger starts to come out.
Yeah, well, you can only bottle it for so long before it starts showing itself, right?
So
Your body.
my expression, the only quote legitimately mine is, what you repress makes you regress.
Yes.
Because it makes you less safe, makes you less people want to be around us when we're going through these things. Yeah. Well, good for you, though, to acknowledge it now, because it helps you better articulate your journey to others so they can learn.
Yes. And so while this was happening, you know, I have younger brothers and so forth, and you know, cousins, and I love, you know, I love the family. You know,
Sure.
they're great. I love my aunts and uncles, and I always wanted to, you know, participate with them, but I always felt like I was apart, and that's from me feeling that way. Not that they ever treated me like that, but sometimes I felt like maybe that's what was happening. But it's not, right? That was just a perception of, well, I don't really belong here. I don't belong here. It was always, you know, and then of course I don't talk, you know, about my feelings and stuff like that. So, but my grandmother was really patient. She would give me books to read, you know.
The wisdom of a grandparent.
Yes, yeah. She was really terrific with me. She treated me like her youngest daughter, you know, and included me in, you know, outings or sleepover, you know, on my own, you know, gave me the best of everything. And so I think that, you know, having her in my life was really been a very huge rock, you know.
Yeah, it's a blessing to have a grandparent that loves us and nurtures us as our own.
Yeah. We grew up with pets in the house, you know, cats and dogs.
That's nice.
Yeah, I was one of the famous girls that just, you know, found a dog and, come home with me, you know, I'm gonna rescue you, you know, find you. Yeah, there's all kinds of stories I could tell about, you know, rescue dogs, and some that stayed and some that left.
Yes.
And I was really grateful today to have those animals, because, you know, they give you that unconditional love.
They do, and they take it too.
Yeah.
As long as you're giving them love in an acceptable, respectful manner, they just lap it up.
Yeah.
I have a niece who just got a puppy, so I can totally relate. And as I watched her, because it's only been a week and a half and we just visited all of us together, that song from a long time ago, they call it puppy love. It's true. It's really true. It's like, look at the eyes on the niece with the puppy. Oh, she's just... And it's so cute to see, but it's so uplifting and nurturing.
Yeah.
Because that puppy just shows her love at 100%, which is great. So you found the dogs, you brought them home, some stayed, some didn't.
Yeah.
But then by now you're 15, 16?
By now I'm 15, 16. I'm starting to run away a lot. You know, not showing up when I'm supposed to. They have to come looking for me. You know, they're calling my friends saying, Judy, you have to be home. Then the parents are, of course, well, Judy, you have to go home now. Okay. So that went on for a few years. And during this time, my brother had left the home. At 13, he left because there was, you know, a lot of things going on between my parents and him, and it wasn't positive, I'll say.
Right.
And so he left, and I was alone in that home. And so, you know, me and my brother,
that's good.
Yeah, through phone calls, you know, sometimes visits. I won't get into the details.
No.
It'll be in my book.
Stay tuned.
And I'm just trying to think where I was going with that. Yeah.
So if you're in the home alone, though, that's got to feel isolating. There's no other kids around your age or younger or older.
No. I have two younger brothers that they had.
Oh, okay.
It was a beautiful home, it was a 3-bedroom home. I had my own bedroom
Wow.
growing up. Yep. I was a little princess. You know,
She's still not that tall, so you could still say that.
Thanks. And there was a lot of pressure of me taking care of, the kids and cleaning up, doing dishes. I didn't cook. That's the only thing I didn't have to do was cook,
Ah.
which the parents love and were happy to do. So the only thing I ever did was maybe breakfast,
Okay.
occasionally.
With my mother, as you eat, you learn to cook over time, but you're going to start off setting the table, clearing the table,
Yeah.
and then over
Yep.
time, you set the table, you clear the table, and you start doing dishes.
Yes. Yep. Exactly.
And then over time,
Yeah.
it graduated into, okay, you're tall enough now to use the stove and cook.
Yeah.
We're going to start off with how to make pancakes, and then it was porridge, and
Yeah.
that was great. But yeah, I could see why some families don't, though. I have friends who their father and mother, they never learned to cook at all when they're home,
Yeah.
which,
Yeah, I would watch, or I would occasionally ask a question, or they would say, "Hey, Judy, look at this," right? Like my father taught us the banana flambe.
oh, orange liqueur,
Yeah, some kind
vanilla,
of. I can't remember what he used.
because I've seen it done with alcohol and no alcohol. Kombucha?
Yeah.
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 Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I've seen it alcoholic, non-alcoholic, but it's
Yeah.
burnt off anyway.
Yes,
So
yeah.
whether it's alcoholic drink or
Yeah,
not, by the
yeah.
time it's cooked, there's no
Yeah,
alcohol in it.
exactly.
But the flavors.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So those kinds of things were the highlights of being part of an adoption family. At the age of so I started drinking. My brother lived down the road by this time, and so I would go visit him occasionally. And
Excuse
at
me.
this time, I was 16, and he said, "Judy," says, "I want to talk to you." And I said, "Oh, okay, cool." He says, "Well, why don't you come over?" I said, "Okay." So he said, I drink. I drink beer occasionally. He says, "Sometimes I drink something harder occasionally." He says, "But I'm not like,
Hardcore.
hardcore." He says, "But I want you to know, I know that you're 16 now." He says, "If you want a beer, you can try it here." And I said, "Sure, I'll have a beer." Right? Thinking, "Oh, this is going to be cool." And so he says, "But I want to talk to you seriously about taking care of yourself, like being safe," right?
Wow, smart brother.
Yeah, he was a very loving brother. He really cared. He wanted me to know that he'll always be around, if I need him, Even when he had left, he said, he says, "I'll be around." He says, "Make sure." He says, "And you go talk to that family if you need me." He says, "They'll let me know, because I'll always be in touch with them too." And so, I had a beer with him, and he was saying, stuff like, "If you're gonna drink, I want you to make sure that you have people who are safe with you, like, that you're safe."
Yep. Yep. 'Cause
And yeah.
some of us are not very respectful to others, and we don't have boundaries. We go after what we think we deserve, and it's
Yeah.
just wrong. So,
Yeah.
smart brother.
Yeah. And then he said that I don't want you getting into drugs. He said, I don't care if you smoke weed. He says, "That's fine. But, stick to that.
Weed
don't
back
go
then
anything."
was 10% as strong as it is today.
Oh, really?
That's what I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
a big difference today
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
do a certain amount then versus now. For those of us of a certain age who didn't, I just found it boring. One amount then is like 10% of what it is for the same amount today. Yes, the active ingredient.
Okay. Yeah.
It's been bred well.
Yeah. So he said, "Don't get into anything more." He says, "I don't think anybody really needs to." He says, it just gets dangerous, and I don't want you to be in danger. He said, and the other thing is, don't get pregnant while you're a teenager.
Don't get pregnant while you're a teen. Some of us were almost scared to date until we were in our 20s because, as to quote my father, "Can you support a child on minimum wage until you've got at least a high school, if not a college diploma?"
Yeah.
It's a lot of work to have a child. And if you have almost no money, it's even more work. It's like, "Geez, Dad, okay." He noticed at 12, when I was 12, the girls were becoming very interesting to me. So I had several talks with him over the years. Not threatening, Just very reality based,
Yes,
sort of like
yeah,
your brother.
yeah, exactly, right? He says, well, he says, if you get pregnant at 16 or 18, like anywhere in between there, he says, I'll disown you. Well, yeah. So in the back of my mind, I kept that, So I didn't have kids until I was in my mid-20s.
Oh, wow, there you go. You waited.
Yep, that's right. Until I was ready.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I started drinking when I was 16, I started getting into it. I went to my friend's place, and her family, they would drink on the weekends, not during the week. And so, I would go sleep over there. And one time, we had a couple, well, not even a couple, we shared a beer. And then I went back to my place, and I had asked my parents over the phone, not face to face, over the phone, can I sleep over? Yeah, sure, no problem. And your parents there? Yeah, they're here. Okay, they know they're actually out, but they're going to be back. Oh, okay, what time? Okay, all this stuff. So I went back home. I had already had, half a beer. I'm young, and, I'm not used to drinking. So we stumbled into my place. My friend was out on the lawn, passed out, looking at the stars. She said, I'll wait here for you. I said, okay. I said, don't go anywhere. I said, don't get sick. And don't talk to anybody. Just hum along or whatever and do something, but don't talk.
Oh, to be 16.
Yeah, and don't stumble into my place. So she was out there laying on the lawn, and the lawn kind of went like, I had a mound, so she was kind of like on the mound going, ah. So I went into the house, and I went upstairs to get my stuff. My parents and my grandparents were in the dining area on the other side of the house, and I'm like, hi, I'm getting my stuff. Coming back downstairs. Went upstairs, my little brothers were there, and they're like, oh, Judy, and just happy to see me. And I almost looked at the oldest of the two, and I almost told him that I had been drinking, and I'm drunk right now. But I didn't say anything, right, because they're just kids. But I wanted to share that with somebody, because I was like, hee, look at me.
I've been naughty.
Yeah.
In moderation.
Yeah, and I'm home, and I'm under the, I'm a little drunk. But I grabbed my stuff and we left, and we started to party more that way. Sneaking alcohol. The alcohol was very abundant in the house. All kinds of hard liquor and a few beer here and there. But I wasn't, getting into that right away. I was more like, going to parties with my boyfriends and, going to my friends and sneaking a beer here and there, going into the bush. There was a lot of back trails and mountains. We call them mountains, but they're just like big stones in the Sudbury area,
Sure,
right?
sure.
Yeah, so.
Very rocky part of Northern Ontario.
Yeah.
So, but you learned from this to have your brother help you articulate guidelines and setting boundaries, which is all part of being resilient and why you're here.
Yes.
Because if you're like me, I had friends that didn't make it to 21 because they didn't practice boundaries. So what I'm getting is a series of controversies, partly self-inflicted and partly others, but a brother and others that love you helping set boundaries and expectation. And a young gentleman in the middle of a party at 2 a.m. saying, well, if you're not interested, that's okay. And then setting out to say, well, you shouldn't be here alone. You should come with a friend.
And leave early.
And leave early. And I said, and always come with a full stomach, because I learned the hard way.
Yeah.
Luckily, I stayed safe. That food isn't always just what you think it is. People have put additives.
Yeah, sometimes.
And now what we have people doing that with things that are so strong that even a grain of it can kill you.
Yeah, it's scary.
I don't go to parties unless I know everybody there, because I don't want recreational stuff snuck in the food. Food for me is fuel.
Yep.
So anyways, back to your story. It's very powerful.
So at this point, having met this person that was very abusive towards me, I felt that, I'm going to start defending myself, right?
Good.
And so I did. I threw a bottle across the room because he threatened my brother. And so when I did that, I hit him I have a really good hand-eye coordination. I have it like dead on. If I focus on it, boom,
It
like,
happens.
yes. So I knocked him out. I knocked him out, and I was like, oh no, oh my God, did I kill him? Well, and this is how it happens, right? Um, he was out for about 2 or 3 minutes, and then he came back, and I said, what happened? Like, here I am lying because I was scared. I didn't know, but at the same time, I was like, he's gonna know, like, something happened, and I did something. So I put the beer bottle away, because it was his, and it happened so fast. My reaction, his falling down and passing out, and it scared me.
Sure.
Right? I was like, oh my God, like I have this ability to do this, and I'm not even drunk. Right, but I've been drinking here and there. But
you've
this
been
person
pushed to the edge of
yes.
your limits by
Yeah.
his disrespect to you, and then including your brother was like, "That's it.
Yep.
I've reached my limit."
Yeah. And so I knew that things are getting dangerous.
Yes.
And then I met somebody else who took me away from that environment, and it was an ex-boyfriend. I was with him for 2 years. During that time, I became, we were very close in the beginning. We were very, very close because, again, he was a 60 scoop. And so me, my brother, and him, we were all close. We would party together all the time. And they started seeing, like, my aggression, my own violence, my anger coming out because I didn't talk about my things. I didn't share my feelings. I was actually really terrified to talk to anybody about anything that I was thinking or feeling. And so this man would always ask me, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm okay. Like, stop bugging me, But I knew that he was caring, right? And I was a very loving person, but very needy, I think, as well at those times. But I couldn't express any of them in a healthy manner, really. The only thing that my mother taught me was to write.
So you were journaling on occasion?
I was actually writing poetry.
Wow.
I have this huge stack of poetry and stories that will probably be included in my book or published, soon.
When that happens, she will tell me. I will put a link below for you to buy the book.
Yes. And so those things were really, I started writing a lot more and just getting those things out. But I also, as I was drinking and smoking up, and, by now, because I'm in a safe environment, I'm with my brother and my boyfriend who get along, and we're spending a lot of time with his family, and then with my brother and him, I'm feeling really safe. But now I'm starting to show aggression.
That's because you're feeling safe, I believe.
Yes.
That's how
Yeah.
I've been.
Yes.
What I have
Yes.
learned is that when you start to feel safer, you start to act out more because you've been accepted and you're safe.
Yes.
But then what you've been repressing is your behavior starts to regress in ways.
Yes.
Like the running away from home. You were feeling safe enough to act out.
Yes. Yeah. And so I started, getting really angry for no reason, blaming, throwing, just, being angry all the time.
Sure.
We'd go out and it's supposed to be having fun, and Judy's getting angry. But that had been showing itself a little bit more, right? And so then, I started trying to get physical with my boyfriend at the time, and he would back off. Like, he would not, he didn't want to touch me. He didn't like that I was being aggressive, so he would leave, and I started thinking, like, what's going on? Like, why am I being, So when we broke up, it was kind of like, it's kind of, okay, well, what more can happen, right? And so I went to the youth group at Neighbor Child and Family Services one day, and I spoke with this one grandmother, and she says, "What do you think you're angry?" I said, "I don't know." She says, "This happens when?" I said, "It seems to hit more when I'm on my moon time." And she's like, "Oh, okay." well, do you want to see anybody for that? I said, what do you mean? Would you want to talk about it? I said, yeah, I think maybe I could. I don't know, like maybe. She said, okay. She says, well, this is great. She says, I've been waiting for you to come to me and ask me for it, because I really want you to feel good,
Yes.
to feel good about who you are and what you can do. She says, because you're a beautiful young lady.
We all deserve safety and
Yeah.
happiness.
Yes.
And if our history is gotten in the way, but we can't even recognize that it's our history getting
Yes.
in the way,
That's right.
it's really tough to move forward. I
Yeah.
call it with my clients the invisible anchors.
Yes. Yeah.
But
Yep.
you would suddenly, through this grandmother,
Yes.
with love and care and patience,
Yes.
she'd help you say yes.
Yeah.
Powerful
Yeah.
shift.
Yeah. And so I'm really grateful, and she's still alive today, and she's still in my life, and I still get to visit her, and we have good
That's
chats.
a blessing.
Yes,
That's a
yes.
blessing.
Yeah, she's a beautiful, beautiful lady.
Oh.
And I'm so grateful that I met her, because she was like my mother. She was like I could go to her and I could just hug her, and she would like pull me in and accept that that's what I needed at that time.
And that unconditional, yes.
Yeah. And it was like a little girl. I felt like a little girl needing to cuddle into her. And I still remember that. And she always validated me, always listened to me, always, really gave me clear guidance,
So you're bringing up one of the most powerful things that can happen to be resilient is having acceptance, unconditional love, somebody that can listen and help reflect with you.
Yes.
Because the anger was getting in the way and you weren't reflecting, you were reacting to life based on this unresolved, unknown, some of it unknown, some of it you knew, stuff.
Yeah.
And it's not fun to carry around that many bushel baskets of stuff unresolved.
Correct.
Because it gets in the way of happiness and safety.
Yeah.
I mean, the drugs and alcohol a little bit, can't judge a little bit, because it's called being human, blowing off steam. Some people eat to forget.
Yeah.
Some people drink to forget.
Yeah.
And in moderation, an evening a week, I can't judge that. But as you're saying, it was spiraling the wrong direction, and then the anger was coming out.
Yeah.
So
And
it's a big, powerful lesson you've just been sharing. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. And so that's when I started wanting to become sober, because I just felt like, I'm going to get killed. I'm going to die. And I couldn't ever, like, even when I was partying, if somebody said something, blah, 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 kill something, that word just, like, would freak me out. I couldn't, I would say, please don't say that. I don't want that word in my life, right? Because I knew that they had, my adoptive parents had explained at some, I can't remember what age, it was a young age, they had taken me and my brother aside and said that, somebody in your family has passed away and they were killed at a bar. And I was like, so I carried that into knowing that, right? And so I put those two in together, here I am in that situation. It's most likely, very, very highly likely that would,
You stay on
contribute
that
to,
same path, that's going to be...
Yeah, if I don't do something to change it.
Yeah.
I never really liked drinking. I didn't like the taste of beer, but Molson was my favorite. That was the only thing I could tolerate, right? I didn't like the hard liquor because I had gotten raped drinking alcohol, like vodka and orange juice. So those things I could associate, and I couldn't drink alcohol and vodka anymore. Like at any point during I would not. I kind of moved away from a lot of people who knew my past because of the pain that associated with it. I also avoided my family because of all that was painful. And, like, I had so much pain. I can't talk to them. I can't be close to them. I know that they wanted to, but I can't. I know that they loved me, but I couldn't reach out to them or share with them, what happened to me. There was other things that happened to me that I didn't include in this thing, but it will be in my book.
Which I look forward to.
And so at this point, I meet this really beautiful woman. Her clan was Bear, and she was the counselor that I was going to talk with. And we did a lot of work. We did let me think. Art therapy. We did play therapy. We did music therapy. We did one-on-one counseling. She shared again with me some books that are really good. I can't remember what it's called right now. Something about broken bonds. Trying to remember the
Okay.
word, the name of it. It was about how adoptees, that broken bond between parents and a child.
Yes.
Once that bond is broken, how it severs the connection that person makes with other people,
Yes.
and how it stunts that
Even
growth.
though it might be a child of 3 months old or 3
Yep.
years old,
Yep.
and we might not intellectually understand,
Yep.
there's an emotional, physical connection that
Yep.
gets snapped.
Spiritual.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
At this time, at 21 now, me and my brother were still close, and he's still drinking and doing drugs. But I'm starting to, you know,
Change direction.
yeah, change direction, because if I don't, I don't. And by now, I'm working with Anishinaabe Health of Toronto.
Wonderful.
You know, that traditional. I've been introduced to the language and the culture slowly through the youth
Really
group at Native
important to
Child and
find our
Family
roots.
Services. Yeah, exactly. Through Native Child and Family Services. I've been to Native Canadian Center. I've been to Council Fire. You know, I'm starting to do volunteer work. I'm starting to get to know the programs, starting to know the people in the community. And I'm changing things, you know, slowly. But I'm still hanging out with some of the youth who are doing drugs and alcohol, and I'm trying to, like, you know, do my own thing, not
Well,
drink.
There's the old world and your new world, and you've got emotional, intellectual attachments here, and it's
Yeah.
tough to transition.
Yeah.
It's just like my friend in a whole different world who found a way to make a new income, all legal.
Yes.
But he said, 1 minute I'm making an average Canadian income, hanging around with the guys with the blue jeans down at the bar on Friday nights for a couple of beer on the way home. And all of a sudden, I'm making 6 times the income, and I'm hanging around with people who have 2 and 3 and 4 business degrees and certifications, and
Yes.
suddenly I'm renovating small buildings, and I'm making serious money. And those guys on Friday night are kind of boring, but they're my friends and my.
Yeah.
He said, you can't live in both worlds. So he said, you sort of have to say goodbye on the only ways you can say goodbye.
Yeah.
And he said, and he's grown again. So we haven't talked in 12 years, because as he was in transition and I was in transition, he found a way to make a couple of zeros on his income and moved his family to another country.
Right.
And I'm sure he's closing in on $500 million in total income in his lifetime, because he's very smart, very hardworking, and he always wants to know one more thing.
Yeah.
What's one more thing I need to know about this?
Right.
So it's really tough. I watched him go through it as he left his old friends
Yes.
and new friends,
Yeah.
and I was in the new friends category as he was.
Right.
And he didn't kick me to the curb. He just got really busy doing more
Yes. Yes.
in new way
Yeah.
in another location. So I was a transition friend.
Yep.
But yes, I hear you totally about leaving old and new.
Yes. And so, you know, I started leaving my brother and my boyfriend behind more, because, you know, they were more interested in doing other things that I wasn't doing anymore.
Yes.
And so that was very difficult. And still today, you know, I haven't seen my ex in a number of years, probably about, 15 years, and or more. And we were really close. And, you know, I would always like to say thank you so much for all your kind, caring, loving ways of helping me
Yes.
through whatever I was going through at the time. You know, he was a very pivotal part of my life. He supported, you know, my new path, and through that, the grandmother actually introduced me to the grandfather drum. Me and a group of ladies, you know.
You can say it. I probably shouldn't.
So we started singing and drumming, and that really brought me to a place of comfort and joy. And whenever, didn't matter how you felt, you go to that drum, and it was like you could be as low as you could, but you sound that drum, you drum that, and you sing a song, and all of a sudden you're like, you're happy, you're really happy.
Drumming changes our thinking, feeling,
Yes.
our bodies, our spirit, because it changes our thinking, feeling cycles.
Yeah.
It it's proven science, but it's also ancient wisdom.
Yes.
I believe they don't have to be exclusive to be ancient wisdom and proven science.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
fighting my cancer, certain types of music
Yeah.
helped lift me up,
Yes.
calm me, focus me, so I could have more fortitude to deal with the dying and living
Yeah.
issues.
Yeah.
So wise of you to go into drumming
Yeah.
and practice it. And the grandfather circle, you call it?
The grandmother,
Grandmother,
the grandmother who brought us to that. She says, I see the men here at this youth group, and I wonder what maybe it will help the girls, right, the ladies,
Yes.
in this group, and so we did. We it helped in a way that had it not been like there was so many different points where I could say, well, this was it, and this was this, but it's all of them together that really brought me forth to where I am today.
Well, in the spirit of talking resiliency, you talked about talk therapy or counseling.
Yes.
You talked about art
Yes.
therapy,
Yeah.
music therapy.
Yeah.
Now you're talking drumming. Well, it
Yeah.
might not be a
And the
formal
writing.
therapy.
And the writing.
And the writing,
Yes.
these are all pieces.
Yes.
And some of your pieces are identical to mine,
Yeah.
and some of them are different.
Yep.
I don't write well. It physically hurts me to write, but I've written long letters on the keyboard,
Oh yes.
read
Okay.
them 3 or 4 times, and thrown them away.
Yeah.
But only thrown them away intellectually, mechanically in a computer. They're still here because it helps you grow through
Yes.
you need to grow through.
Yeah.
So this is powerful times for you. This is a big transition. Leaving a boyfriend behind that was nurturing and caring, but
But still.
helped you move forward. But
Yeah.
then when you were ready to move forward more, they weren't. And so it's not a character flaw.
No. It was very difficult to go through those things, and those moments. I was at my lowest, saddest, deepest, most painful place of mourning, and being an adoptee, mourning is part of that very beginning.
Yes.
Where that bond was broken, and so any mourning that happens, you go back there again.
Yes.
Right. It's almost like like there's the bottom of the barrel, and you're always gonna go right down to the bottom before you come back up, right? And so, I thought about going back out, and I thought I should just, but then I thought I need to go to Anishinaabe Health. I need to go to these places. I need to talk to my elder. I call her my elder now.
Yes.
And that second mother, and
So important to
yes,
have.
yeah. At the same time, along my whole life, I stay close to all my relations.
Good.
Which is the trees, the water, the air, the earth. And so I spent a lot of time walking and doing all kinds of things like that, just having those feelings and talking to them and letting them know, and my frustrations, my anger, my pain, my sadness, my losses, my tears. And then I would come home refreshed wherever I was, right? And so those are the things that I was looking
you were
for.
Acknowledging.
Yes.
And you were articulating.
Yes.
And so yes, in the thinking and articulating and the feeling, but then you're hearing it again.
Yeah.
So I think there's more process.
Yeah. And so I always knew, that the trees and those could feel us or communicate with us if we just listened. And so that's why I would always go to the water. I would always go to the trees. I would always go to the grandfather stones or those things.
And across cultures, the Japanese have a big deal about going to the forests. And as a kid, I grew up near a cedar grove. So not big enough to call it a forest of cedar trees.
Yeah.
But I've been back and counted, and there was at least 40 of these trees on a bank of a river.
Yeah, very healing.
And as a 6-year-old, I like to go in and sit in there with no people.
Yes.
Leave me alone.
Yep.
It's me in the trees. I'm on a 6-inch to a foot of old cedar leaves. I don't know what you call them because they don't look like leaves off a maple tree.
Yeah.
But it was such a time, and I've gone back as an adult many times because it's just like,
Yep. So very healing. Yeah.
and
peaceful.
As a boy, I like to climb trees.
Yeah.
And yet the cedars, it never seemed to be appropriate to climb. It was almost like it was disrespectful to the cedars.
Yeah.
It's the maple trees. It seemed like the thing to do, to get in there up close and hang on and look and feel. But cedar trees, it seemed to be like more of a spiritual reverence was required, and just
Yes.
and me at 6, I wasn't quiet much. So wise though, because time in nature is another type of therapy.
Yeah.
And
And I really do believe, you know, that they did listen and they did hear me. You know, there's things that I would notice, like one time I just said, I need a hug. Could you give me a hug? And then all of a sudden, like all this, I could just feel like it wrapped itself around me. And I was like, wow, this is so beautiful.
like a change in energy, and it came to you, not suffocating you, but came to, it embraced you.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, you know, I knew there's so many things that happened, you know, with nature that I felt there was this huge connection, and I wanted to explore more of that, but I didn't know how. And through all these, you know, being just self-destructive, self-harming, there was moments, even in my sobriety, where I felt, you know, that, suicide was an answer. This was before my son. And, you know, at one point, you know, I was thinking, why am I thinking like this still? And I was thinking, you know, there's something more that I need to do.
Right.
And so, you know, I kept going to sweat lodges and all those things through my sobriety, so that way I would not self-harm. But I didn't go to sweat lodge for about, the first one I went to with my grandmother. It was in 1994, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't go back to a sweat lodge for another 5 or 6 years after that. But through Native Child Family Services and through Anishinaabe Health, you know, I started really connecting to the culture and my sobriety. I refused to go back to alcohol and drugs.
That takes courage and wisdom.
Yeah. There was a lot of opportunity. There was a lot of pressure to, you know, do those things, but I refused. I was adamant. That was done. Even though in my mind sometimes it would be like, well, why do I have to be the sober one? You know, I always had to fight that for many, many years, actually, up until like about 5 years ago. I had to stop and think about, like, I'd be walking home and I'd be like, well, maybe I should just go party with these guys, you know, like, why? I could have a few. And I was like, no, I'd have to start over, and I know that it's not going to give me anything that I really want.
No,
you know,
a little bit of short-term gratification for a lot of long-term pain, including more danger.
Yes, exactly. So I found that I would, you know, go to these functions, these bars or these places, you know, pool halls, or which I really enjoyed. I love playing pool, you know, and still to this day, you know. And me and my friends, we do talk, like, you know, traditional people that I hang out with, or just, you know, my AA people that sometimes we go to events, and we start talking about those kinds of things, like, oh, I remember, and we'd laugh about it right now, you know, like, holy jeez, man, like, we were really, like, in danger when we were doing stuff like that, because, you know, you didn't really associate danger with that, you know, kind of behavior. But
my high school friends, some of them came from families of great wealth.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember not being invited to those parties because I wasn't cool.
Right.
I didn't need drugs to have a good time.
Yeah.
But there were certainly some interesting young ladies there that I was interested in.
Yes.
But I remember my mother talking to me at breakfast that last night, the party I hadn't gone to, 3 of the kids had to go to the hospital and almost died.
Yeah.
Because even in the 60s and 70s, people were mixing things in the drugs, and somebody mixed horse tranquilizers with street drugs because they'd stolen stuff from a veterinarian's office thinking it would be more fun. Well, all 3 went comatose within seconds of ingesting.
Jeez.
And only because somebody called 911 in a hurry did their lives get spared. So my mother's like, I know you know these kids, but you be real careful if you go anywhere with these people.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's small town. I could walk to their house. It's less than a half a mile. So I'm glad I was considered boring.
Yeah.
I have a very fast metabolism rate. I might not have made it.
Right.
So yeah, I really appreciate
glad you did.
your courage
you
to share, because these are transitional moments. pivotal moments that we
Yes.
all go through.
Thanks.
So thank you.
Yeah.
So I think we should do this again when the book's published.
Yes. Absolutely.
Because this is just part one of this incredible journey. But boundaries, expectations,
Yeah.
new goals,
Yeah.
new friendships, leaving good friendships because they couldn't progress.
Yeah.
They'd help pull you out of the ditch, if you will. But then you wanted to get on the highway and they wanted to travel the side roads. To use an old analogy, trying to stay respectful. So
Yeah.
good for you.
Yeah.
So this has been Judy and Resiliency for Life, about the beginnings of her journey. Now soon to be an author. And what else are you doing these days as we wrap this up?
I'm just traveling a lot to powwows. You know, I've finished a sentence, and so I just like to wish that and pray that people who are having difficulties in their own lives, who can relate to my story, know that as a child and youth worker, I'm available to support and help others. Right now, I have 2 puppies at home. One's a full breed Rottweiler, and the other one's a half breed. And both, need to be trained and loved and cared for, and so they're on the back of my mind
More
right now.
boundaries and expectations in a different way.
Yeah, and I have a grandson, a 1-year-old grandson.
Wow.
Yeah, so
Beautiful
and
times.
he's just really just absolutely incredible,
So,
and so is his mom and dad and the rest of their family, and just work on my book and the work that I do at U of T in Ryerson and all the other places that I've been invited to do work
Wonderful.
with. Yeah,
powerful.
Thank you.
I want to thank you for your time.
Thanks.
The gift of sharing is immense. I don't know about you, but I know many have told me when they share their what I call big stuff issues, because that way we don't trigger anybody. The next day can be tiring, so thank you for sharing energy today
Yes.
and as you regroup tomorrow. So thank you.
Thank you.
So until next time, I'm Michael Ballard with our special guest. And imagine yourself with more resiliency for life, because yes, we can when we ask for help or be the help or both.
Great.
Thanks, Judy.
Thank you very much.
Much appreciated.
You too.
I will put a link down to her where you can find her if you need her, want her to speak at your group. Thanks.